that moment at like mile 45, I'm like, why am I doing this? This sucks. I might drop. And I told myself, no matter what, I'm finishing this race. Hey, Andrew Snow here, and I'm gonna be talking with you today about the Javelina Jundred, which is a 100-mile race out here in the desert outside of Phoenix. It was a really beautiful race. What I'm gonna share with you here are a couple of things that I learned as an ultra runner, and you may be able to apply some of these things if you're an ultra runner, if you're a trail runner, if you run in the heat, or if you're a distance runner, say like the marathon or so. For shorter distances, this may be an entertaining story, I'm not sure, but even with 27 years of experience, you know, there's still things to learn, and this one brought out a couple new lessons for me. So let's go into it right now. Let's shoot into a review of this race. Here we go. All right, so this race was run at the end of October in the desert, and it was really hot. It was really sunny, and I'd never done anything like that before. I've run 100 miles, I've run 200 miles, I've run lots of races that are like 50K, 50 mile, and I've run them even in the heat. The last 200-mile races that I did were 86 degrees or so and humid. So it was like kind of an issue, but never in the direct sun like this. So I hadn't really been prepared to run in the direct sun. I think that this is probably a weakness of mine. And if you've never run in like, not just the hot, but the direct sun, just like baking you all day, it's really like the name of the game for this race. So there's all kinds of tactics used to try to mitigate this. People running with umbrellas, and at every aid station that you get to, they have unlimited ice. So they have these ice buckets with these big sponges, and you take it and you just wash your body off with it, and every runner's doing that. So it really is about being cool, and there's all kinds of fun little tactics that runners are using to stay cool by like packing ice into various like crevices and hats and sun protection. But really that's the name of the game. So when the gun went off, it was actually nighttime. The sun was about to come up, but you know, it was dark, it was a little cooler, but it was only like 45 minutes until sunrise. So no big deal. We didn't have to worry about the heat then. And we're running 5 loops that are 20 miles. So you know that you're gonna get an aid station, like your own aid station at the start finish every 20 miles. And this place was popping. They called it Javelina headquarters. And it's quite a cool little place. They have a stage with like neon lights and music going and fire dancers. 5 o'clock in the morning, but you're early for the club. And at the beginning of the race, you just got to like hang out and be entertained. And there's like people in costumes doing all kinds of like acrobatics and just really fun stuff. You know, they really do make this a party atmosphere. And you're gonna come through here every 20 miles and get juiced up. But when you're out there in the desert, there's nothing like that. It's just like you and the sun baking. So the first 2 laps for anybody, regardless of the pace you're running, your first 2 laps at least, and if you're an elite, maybe like your first 3 laps are gonna be in the sun baking. And it did seem to be a huge issue for a lot of people. I was surprised. For myself, it wasn't an issue. I don't run well in the heat, so I thought, and it was like not a big deal, really. I had my hat on and I kept the brim like pointed towards the sun, keep myself shaded. I had a little buff behind my neck so I didn't get burned, some sunscreen on, and drank a lot of water. So that's where nutrition starts to come into this. You need a lot of calories for a 100-miler, you could imagine, right? And you need a lot of hydration. So I've run my best 50K, 50-mile, and 100-mile off of drinking almost exclusively juice. So 50K, 50-mile, and 12-hour race PRs are all run off of having nothing but fresh pressed juice, orange juice, watermelon juice. And it works really well for me. So I figured for a hot race, what better could you do than drink juice? And I was right for like the first 20 miles or so, because it's very hydrating and I'm getting my calories in through liquid. So it's easy to digest, and digestion can become even more taxing in a hot race. So I thought I was being super smart here. And I think I was, because I was staying hydrated. That wasn't an issue whatsoever. But the only problem was I found that in up to like 50 miles, I can get all the calories I need through juice. But in 100 miles, you need a lot of calories. And the juice just like wasn't cutting it. So lap 1, 20 miles, lap 2, 40 miles, I've been 100% juice and raw food. And so far, so good. But I went out a tiny little bit fast, and that's something that runners do in every distance, isn't it? Go out a little bit too fast. And I definitely feel like I have mastered this in every distance up to the marathon and even the 50 mile. Even the 12-hour race, I'm really good at pacing, even pace, metronome the whole way without a blow up later. But in the 100-mile race and the 200-mile races, every one I've done, I'm running a positive split, and I kind of bonk and hit the wall somewhere in the middle. And you go up and you go down and you hit these low lows, and then you wait long enough, you come out of them. And that's what happened here. So about 35 miles in, I started really feeling the pain of, I don't know, I was really tired. I almost wanted to just like go to sleep. I think the heat, even though it didn't dehydrate me, it just like takes a toll on you energetically, you know? And I was really tired. And at 40 miles in, I'm telling you, the carnage was real. The first lap, everybody's talking, it's very social. The second lap, it's very social, everybody's yakking with each other. And at the beginning of the third lap, nobody was saying a word. And there were 800 runners here, so there was lots of runners around you. And I'm telling you, most people were hurting by 40 miles in, which is kind of early in a 100-miler to be really hurting. And I was one of them for sure. So coming around to 40 miles, I was very happy to get to that aid station and get kind of like pumped up with energy a little bit. I didn't do anything crazy. I just got in, got my stuff, you know, packed back up in my pack and got out. And I decided I'm gonna start eating solid food now. Cooked food, solid food. I'm not gonna be raw anymore because I realized I just needed more calories. So mile 40 is where it really started to hurt. You know, 40 to 50 or so was just like awful. And you know, in marathons and things like that, a lot of runners think that like walking is blasphemy. I can't walk, I have to run the whole thing. And in ultras, it's not like that. So the first 10 miles of the loop are uphill and then 10 miles downhill. And I figured I'm gonna eat a whole bunch of food and I'm going to walk until I feel better and then take a break at this aid station. So I took 5 miles with just walking and eating and keeping it slow so I didn't completely blow up here. And it worked. Started to feel a little bit better. And by the time I got to the aid station here, I took some time off. I stopped. And this aid station was a godsend, I'll tell you. They had music playing. They had a stage with like a big, huge screen with dancers and Halloween stuff. And it was just fantastic. So I stopped here for 20 minutes, a full 20 minutes. And I ate a bunch of like nonsense food. They had these Beyond Burgers, and these things are not healthy. I do not promote eating these things for like your normal health, but I just needed calories. And I'm like, any calorie that's vegan still is gonna be a good calorie. So I sat down, I put my feet up and took a break. And it was like life was breathed back into me. And I started to feel good. And I hit the trail and started to pick it up. It's downhill now. And this is where I consider my race to have really started, is like mile 55. Everything else before that was just like warming up and then bonking a little bit. But 55 is where I started taking off. And here's where it got really good. So I'm starting to gather energy, and I told myself, what I really want is to hit mile 60 feeling energetic, feeling good, and it's coming up. So they had this thing called the best butt competition, where they encourage you to just like bear it all, you know? You gotta cover what's on the front, but everything else, fair game. And I decided that I was gonna do this because it sounds fun. It's kind of like, why would I not wanna run mostly naked in a race in the desert? When are you gonna do this though? During the day, the sun is so extreme that it doesn't seem like a good idea to be taking off clothing. You gotta protect yourself from the sun. And then at nighttime, it's in the desert, so it gets really cold really quick. And you wanna have clothes on. Like when I got to my last lap, which we'll talk about in a minute, I had 3 layers of clothes on, plus gloves and a hat, like a winter hat. It's like, so when is the right time to be declothed? Well, I figured what I was gonna do was get into the aid station at mile 60. So I rolled up mile 60 and oh boy, this was a good time of the race. This is where everything turned around because the 100K runners were finishing right now. The 100-mile runners are on lap like 3 or so. That's where I was. And they also did this 1-lap race that was like this nighttime Halloween race, and that was just finishing. So there was the maximum amount of people there. There were thousands of people. And you come into the aid station and you have like almost half a mile to run. You run around, you run through a tent, you run around the whole, everything where all the people are, all the crew and everything. It's like this, I call it in my mind the gauntlet. And all of the vendors and all of the dancers and all of the stage and all the music, you just run right through it, kind of like a finisher's shoot. You run out, you hit the checkpoint, you run back. So you have like almost half a mile of running through a sea of people. So I went to my aid station. I got everything ready first. I got my pack ready, I filled up my juice, I did all that. And then I got all my clothes off, minus like a little tiny bit of fabric to cover the front. And I went and changed in the porta potty, and then I'm like, I'm gonna crank through this thing and like just juice it up. And I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna be received, but I know that this is like what they promote. They say do this. So I did. And I got out and I ran that whole gauntlet, and it was pretty fun. There was a lot of hooting, a lot of hollering, a lot of like, whoa, oh my God, because as far as I could see, I was just about the only one to do it. Now, maybe there were other people ahead of or behind me who did. I didn't see anybody in the whole race doing this thing. But I'll tell you, there's nothing like running through 1,000 screaming people all in Halloween costumes at nighttime with disco music going, with no clothes on, in an ultra. And the amount of like props that I got from people just like being like, oh yeah, awesome, like loving it, you know, loving it. And then they see me go through and they know I'm coming back through again, so they're like really cheering for me. It felt really good. I mean, there's like adrenaline going. It's like this cool moment. It's a fun moment. And I'll tell you what, when I got out of that aid station, I had taken like a little break, eaten food, had this moment that I just told you about, and had like, on top of that, had all the thousands of people and the cheering and the cowbells and the music and the stage and the lights and all the finishers and everything. And if you put all of that together, it's just like I ran out of there like a bat out of hell, you know, just zoom. And I figured, okay, 2 laps to go, 40 miles to go. Let's crank. And I swear that I felt like I could have just sprinted in the last 40 miles. It felt like the home stretch, but it's not even close. 40 miles to go. So my mantra became slow burn, a slow burn, a slow burn, a slow burn. You feel good? Don't burn it up, because the last thing I wanted to do was bonk again. I already had my bonk in this race. I didn't want to bonk again. There's no time for that. I just really didn't want to. I didn't have a time goal for this race. Not at all. I wanted to enjoy it and just be present to the moment. Enjoy being in the desert. Enjoy being part of this 800-person, 100-mile race. Enjoy meeting people, talking with people, helping them, making friends, and just enjoying. So I didn't want to bonk. Even though I felt like $1,000,000, I slow burned it, I slow burned it, I slow burned it. And I said, you know what, there's plenty of time. I can pick it up with 20 miles to go if I want. And that's essentially what I did. So on this lap, now the sun is down, we're running in the dark, and it's beautiful. And this amazing moment that anybody who was there, Javelina 2023, knows this moment, because we had a full moon. And maybe other years there isn't a full moon, but here's what happened. So there was like a little conga line of us going through this beautiful, nice little single track path through the desert, and the sun just went down. And almost like clockwork, you know, the moon sometimes comes up before the sun goes down or well after the sun goes down, but the sun went down, and then just like minutes later, 5 or 10 minutes later, you could see on the mountain ridge off in the distance that we're running towards this glow. And you could watch the moon rise in real time, like, because it was right on that horizon and you could see it, and you could just watch the moon emerge, and we're running right towards it. Everybody around me was saying, oh, wow, wow, just like out loud. Everybody, even me, I kind of just talked to the people around me and said, this is the moment we're gonna remember. And everybody's like, oh yeah, it was this beautiful moment. So stack on top of everything that I just said about how I was like feeling really good, and then this moment comes. And it was about here that I met up with a new running partner. Now you run with all kinds of people in these races, but maybe for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. I ended up running with this girl for quite a while, up into the aid station. So now it's nighttime, and we got 1.5 laps to go. And the temperature is starting to cool down, but it's not so cold yet. It's only, I don't know, midnight, something like that. And her and I decided she's vegan too, so we decided to kind of like hook together and just run for a little bit. And that, on top of everything else I told you, like finding a like-minded person to run with for 3 hours, and we ran together and we helped each other, and we made sure we didn't do something stupid with pace, and we just kept each other company. And it was quite fun. I really enjoyed that section of the race. Running down, 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 down. And I started to feel so good that I'm like chomping at the bit, like let's go, let's go, let's go. But I still have 30 miles to go. Slow burn, a slow burn. But it's almost time to let it go. And this is where like the highest point of the race was. After all of that juice, the literal juice, but after the running bare butt and meeting friends and eating food and the moonrise and taking a break and feeling energized, like all these things, now it's time to go. So I come into the aid station for the last time, and now there's nobody there because the 100K, they're all done. The one lappers, they're all done. The 100-mile winners, they're all done. So we went from like thousands of people to like hundreds, like maybe, I don't know, 200 people. And really, this is where the beauty happened. I knew that I was gonna crank on this last lap, and it was time to go. So I wasn't really hungry at this point. I don't even think I filled up my juice. I didn't take any extra food. Early on in 100, I wonder if you're a 100-mile runner as well, like put this in the comments, like let me know. But I tend to eat a lot in the first half and then almost nothing in the second half, because digestion, it just like doesn't work anymore. Your stomach doesn't work anymore. At this point, I was just doing like watermelon juice topped off with extra Gatorade powder to make it like concentrated, and it was working really well for me. So I just took off really quick. I ditched my pack and I got a lighter pack so I can just run free and run light, but I thought it might get really cold because it was starting to get a little chilly, and I'm like, I'm gonna be out there for 4 or 5 more hours and it's gonna get really cold. So I put on, instead of just one thin shirt, I put on a t-shirt and then a long sleeve thermal shirt and then a weatherproof jacket. And the shirt had gloves built into it, and then a winter hat with a buff as well. And I'm glad I did. I needed all of that. Thank goodness I had all of that, because it got cold out in the desert. The temperature just went down, and kept it conservative through 10 miles to go, and then just let it rip. The last 10 miles downhill, faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. And I look at the splits that Strava gives you, and every single mile, those last 10 miles was faster than the one before. Every mile was faster and faster and faster. And I didn't want to blow up, so I like kept going a little faster, but not really going to the well. And then with 6 miles to go, started picking it up more. 5 miles to go, really picked it up more. And I wanted to break 26 hours. I didn't think I was going to. I was like 25 minutes behind that with 10 miles to go, but then I picked it up. And then with 3 miles to go, I just started like sprinting, basically. And the last 3 miles of the race were my 3 fastest miles of the entire race in a row. And I finished my last full mile in 7:37, and the last, running the gauntlet, which is like the last 0.8 miles or so, finished that at a 6:52 pace at the end of a 100-miler. I felt so good. So there's a lot of blessings here, and some of the lessons I learned were with diet, gotta take in a lot of calories. It's hard to be raw. It's not hard to be vegan and get the calories in, that's not a problem. But to be raw, that's harder, much harder in an ultra of this length. Now, up to 12 hours, it's no problem, but when we're getting into 24 hours and beyond, cooked food is, I just kind of seem to need it. I know there are other ultra runners who can stay completely raw, but I'm not sure how you do it. The only way I can think to do it is with dates, because they have a high calorie. And I love dates, I eat a lot of dates, but for some reason, during a race, I don't want that many dates. I eat like one bag full, and I'm kind of sick of them, and I never can really get a whole bunch of dates down, so I need to find something else. What's worked for me later in the race is things like little sandwiches, bread, small things that I can just eat, like suck on. Like I had a couple pretzels and just put them in the cheek and just sucked on them, basically. More calories. But I think I did really well. I think I did really well. It's all relative, isn't it? But for me, I hit my low and I reset myself, and I came back like mentally and physically and emotionally and all those things. I like brought it from a low to a high, and I had faith that it would. When I was in that moment at like mile 45, I'm like, why am I doing this? I don't want to do this. This sucks. I might drop. And I told myself, no matter what, I'm finishing this race. I don't care if I suffer and have to walk the whole thing, I'm finishing it. So I was committed to finishing it, but it kind of sucked. And then it got better. And I think it got better because I was easy on myself. I let myself take a break. I took that 20-minute break halfway through at mile 50. And if not for that, I would have just suffered ungodly for 50 miles, and I'd probably hate running right now. And it would have been miserable. But I just took a 20-minute break. And you know what? I made up more than those 20 minutes in just those last 3 miles. I was just flying. I made up like 6 or 7 minutes per mile. So there you go. In 3 miles, I make up that whole thing, and I did, and then some. So be easy on yourself. Take a break. That's what aid stations are for. If you're an ultra runner, like, use the aid station, please. If you're really, really elite, like going for the win, I guess you can't do that. You gotta fly right through. But if you're not going for the win, like the real win, if you're going for like the best you can do, even a PR, high performance, I suggest being easy on yourself. And for me, what seems to work is eat a lot early on and then stop eating later on. Let your stomach like clear out, and then that helps you run a negative split, sort of. It helps you run faster later. And that's it. That's my story for Javelina Jundred. Would I do it again? During the race, I said no. But now, hell yeah. Quite an experience. Quite an experience. It was also the flattest course I'd ever done. I've only run these kinds of races in the mountains. And this had 8,000 feet of elevation gain, but considering, you know, the last 100-miler I did, Hellbender 100, it was basically pancake flat. It felt like it. So that's a new adventure. In the desert, running flat, meeting new people. So signing off now. I hope you got something from that. Hope you learned something from my story, maybe even if it's just a little bit of entertainment. I'm here in Phoenix, signing off. This has been Andrew Snow with the Run Elite. Maybe I'll see some of you again at Javelina next year. One of my clients came out actually to surprise me and cheer for me. And that just like made the day even better. Thanks for all the love that I get from some of you guys and people in my life who supported me. It really means a lot. Take care. Hey there, if you got something awesome from this video, share the love. Make sure to give us a thumbs up, subscribe, and share this video. We hope to see you on our very next one. Thank you for being here. Take care.